Hey guys, it's Shooting It with Sos here. Thanks for tuning in again for another knife review video. Today, as you can see, I have some Lightnings on the table, and most of you probably understand or know what a Lightning is, and what these are kind of used for, and why they're so famous. I kind of became a fan of these knives after Nothing Fancy. Everyone probably knows who he is. He talks a lot about these, did a lot of reviews on these knives, and really got me sold on the EDC use of them, as well as just the fun factor, you know, the cool factor. These things are just kind of cool knives to have, and they're cheap, they're inexpensive, and you know, for an OTF, a double action knife, you really can't go wrong. So I'll show these to you and kind of maybe talk to you a little bit about each one of them. My first knife that I picked up when I got into OTFs was actually this guy right here. This is the first one I ever got. I got it from Blade HQ. I believe I ordered it direct on the website, and then I went to pick it up because I'm here local in Utah where Blade HQ is, which is I feel very fortunate because Blade HQ is down the street, and then that's a fun place to go visit if you've never been there. Try to get out there. They're great people and a great business. Anyways, this was the first Lightning I ever got. And after I got it, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of, you know, it's kind of hokey, it's kind of cheap, and it, you know, I really wasn't too impressed with it. But I'll tell you what, the more I carried it and the more I used it, the more impressed I became with it. And what really made me impressed was I picked up a microtech. So this is the first one I bought, okay? And then after this one, I started to really like this, having a lot of fun doing this. I mean, this is a lot of fun as is. Everyone who has an OTF understands and knows that, right? That's just a lot of fun. But I picked up a microtech Ultratech. And that was, oh man, now that's probably 5 or 6 years ago was when I got my first OTF. And then the Ultratech. And so after about one day of doing the same, you know, nothing different than this right here, my Ultratech, you know how sometimes if you're familiar with OTFs, you'll push to eject and it won't go all the way out, or it'll miss something and it'll be a loose blade and it'll kind of fall back in and it's just disconnected from the mechanism inside. And so I was like, that's really strange that a microtech Ultratech did that. I mean, it was a $280 knife when this here was only a $29 knife or $28 knife at the time when I got this knife. So I was thinking, that's really weird. I've never had that happen on my Lightning. Now I have had it happen on, I think it was this one. I've had that happen, but you know, then again, this is only a $28 to $40 knife, $39 knife tops. So, you know, if this does it, I'm not worried at all about it. But when my almost $300 Ultratech did it, I was definitely concerned and not very happy about it. So when I realized that the spring mechanism in here, I took this apart and I was having a look inside, and it's just such an easy, simple design inside, and it just freaking works. It's kind of like what Nothing Fancy says. He talks about it all the time. You know, he says, you could do this all day long. And you may get a mess up, but it's so rare with one of these to like failure to eject, you know, or failure to retract. But I'll tell you, like 80% of the time, this thing deploys. It functions. And not to mention, I mean, if you get this blade profile, it's a hollow grind, and it stays really sharp for a good while. I mean, I cut boxes all day long for work and open packages and things with these guys, and yeah, it definitely gets dull. This is a cheap, I think it's like a 440A or maybe a 440C or maybe even an 18, what is it, a 18 CRM. I don't know what it is off the top of my head right now, but just a cheap Chinese steel, but super easy to reprofile, super easy to sharpen, and again, you're not mad because it didn't break the bank. It's at $29. I think this one was $28 with the plain blade and just the black color. It was about, oh man, $24 to $28, somewhere in that area. Just really worth picking one of these up. If nothing else, the novelty, just to have it and to hold it and to play with it. But freaking cool knife. And actually my second one I got was this one, because I wanted to get a spear point. You know, I wanted to get it, you know, have this idea. I thought that was pretty cool. Plus you could open packages both ways or letters both ways. It's just easy. Plus it's pretty sweet. Pretty cool blade with their two-tone profile. They have of course, the little black paint, which this paint is not very durable. For those of you who know about these knives, it's cheap. You know, it's really cheap. But I'll tell you what, I mean, it's cool. It functions. It works. It's awesome. So again, I'd recommend them. This one I think came in, because of the two-tone, I think they're a little more. I think they're $33.99, so like 34 bucks at the end of the day, but not bad at all. Like super good deal. And the pocket clips are actually really strong, really rigid. I will say they don't sit very deep, as you can see. I mean, you got 2 screws here above, so you got a good 1/2 inch sticking out of your pocket, which is kind of annoying, but again, 40 bucks, you got a cool OTF, and all your friends, when you pull that out, like your friends at work will be like, oh, that's pretty neat, let me see that, what is that, you know, and then they want to buy one. Actually, I've had a lot of friends buy them because they saw mine and use them. But yeah, some people also get scared with them. So if you work in an area around customers or something, maybe this is not the knife I would recommend to pull out, you know, if you have to like open a little box in front of people. But if it's, you know, you're in a warehouse or you're working in a back room or something where you're opening up inventory or whatever it is, or even just at home, these are awesome to use. And I look for any excuse ever to pull out my one of these guys, one of these Lightnings, to open letters or to open boxes. And then I got these two at the same time. 2 bright colors, just kind of fun. I actually have never even carried these yet. I have carried both of those, but I haven't carried either one of these just yet. There is absolutely no wear on them. Something I did do to all of these, you certainly won't hear it on these because I fixed it, but sometimes if you grab one of these Lightnings and you deploy them, you'll hear kind of like a Tony spring sound inside here. You'll hear it kind of echo a little bit. I watched a video on how to fix and repair that. You can just get a little grease, just a tiny amount of grease, unscrew this, take it off, and put some grease on the springs, and then just put it back together. Put the cover back on. And I also put a little grease under this thumb ramp just to keep it smooth. I did that on all of these, and it is incredible. It deploys every single time. It is super quiet now internally, so there's no more ringing, no more humming, like the little sound of the spring vibrating. It does not have that at all. Let's see if you can hear anything. Nothing. Check out that blade. Yeah, you can see I have used this one around the house, but not a whole lot. I really like the two-tone. I mean, even though it's kind of crappy paint, it's just a cool look. And on these really bright colors, I get the same blade profile here. I really like the drop point. I do like this little spear point dagger style, but I have other OTFs that have that, and so I was like, you know what, for this knife, this for me is a user OTF that I'm going to use pretty hard, and I'm not going to be sad if I damage it or break it. I can go get another one for 35 bucks. You know, I think both of these were 34 bucks plus taxes. And so, you know, the spear point was just kind of fun to get, but like I said, I have other defensive spear point OTFs, if you will, but man, you cannot go wrong with adding one or multiple of these in your collection, just because they're cheap, they're easy to use, and they're fun to play with. They're super fun to play with. But there you go. That's the Lightning. These are hard to find if you just try to go search for them on the internet. The only place I really find them now is on Grindworks, which is, you know, a Blade HQ sister company, if you will. So grindworks.com has these on there all the time, and they always have new colors. I have heard of one other place. I can't remember where it is, but it's a strange place to get them. But, you know, Grindworks is the best place to get them, I think, in the US. But they're incredible budget OTFs and super fun to use. They make great gifts if you can give them to someone who lives in a place where you can legally have one of these. Legally carry one. But you cannot go wrong with these Lightning OTFs. So I'll also show you, I brought a couple other knives here just to show as comparison as other budget OTF knives. First one here is the AKC, and it has a little copper inlay. This one also has a really nice clip, and it's a little bit deeper carry pocket, as you can see, pocket carry clip. This one I haven't carried, but I have used a lot around the house because when I got this one, it was incredibly sharp, and so I used it a lot to open mail, open letters, and things like that. I also bought this one at Blade HQ. I just went down to the shop and I was playing with a bunch of OTFs, and I saw this one, and it was the same. I think it was 28, 32 to 32 bucks, somewhere right in there. Same price point as these. But it was just a different option. And I wanted something a little different. You know, I mean, I've got 4 of these, all the same. This one's a little different design. It's much slimmer. It's probably maybe a little heavier. Maybe a little bit heavier. But as you can see here, it is a spear point design. And this is the F16 model. But what's interesting about it is it's not sharpened on this side. It's only sharpened on this edge right here. This is actually flat, as you can see, and then it is trimmed down here. It's like a clipped edge, but this is not sharpened. It could be if you want to sharpen it, but it is not sharpened. You may be able to see that thickness of the blade there. And then on this side, flip it over, you can see that it is just razor sharp. This side was incredibly sharp. So I really enjoy this knife. And this one I have never had a failure to deploy. I've used this thing quite a bit around the house mainly, but never ever had a failure to deploy. It's a little different feel because of these little, you know, notches here, and they don't have any, you know, gripping on them, jimping on them, if you will, like these little grooves on these. So there's really nothing to grip, but you know, you get used to how it feels, and it shoots out so nicely. Just really cool knife. And they make these with a lot of different colors on the inside, these little inlays. I just got the copper one. I think it was copper or yeah, copper, I believe, just because I'm hoping over time, you know, I can get that I forget the term now, the patina or whatever they call it, to, you know, get some pretty interesting looking colors come out of this copper. But yeah, this is one option that you can have as well. As an OTF option. It's a little smaller, actually, it's funny, it is thinner, but I think it's lighter than the or I think it's heavier, sorry, than the Lightning. That's interesting, huh? It feels a little bit heavier. I don't know the exact weights, but you can go to Grindworks and actually get the weight. Here's another one I got from Grindworks. This one is bigger, as you can see, just from handle length right there. I mean, it is just a little bit bigger, but this one is hefty. This one's super heavy. Now this one is made by Atomic on the Grindworks website. This particular color, this coyote tan or whatever, you know, the FDE color, was on sale, and this knife I got for $27 or $26. Normally $39 though, if you get this in other color variants. But this particular color was inexpensive. It was on sale. It has a deep pocket carry clip. It's got a glass breaker on the end with a little steel ball at the end, so I guess you can break glass or skulls or whatever you want to do with it. Side ramp handle or deployment button. This one's also a double edge spear point, but you can see that the blade is actually kind of reminiscent of like a microtech, ultratech blade profile, where they have the little holes in the middle and little different designs. Both sides of this, of course, are sharpened. Really good looking knife, and quite a bit larger. Like, so have a look at that there. You can see that it's got a good inch probably, plus this little guy on the end. If I scoot that up to the end, probably a good inch, maybe an inch and a quarter longer than these. However, probably 2 or 3 times the weight. Much heavier knife. Very cool knife at the same time, but quite a bit heavier. This one I have not had as long, but it also has never failed to deploy. But I don't play with it as much because it is so heavy. It's not quite as enjoyable sometimes as these, which are much lighter weight and easy to deploy. However, I do enjoy this at the same time. I haven't even opened a letter with this. I should get something to open a letter. When I got it, I did cut some paper to see, you know, how sharp it was, you know, doing little S cuts and things like that. But This knife is a fun one to have, and especially for the price, I couldn't pass it up to add to my collection of OTFs just because it was inexpensive, and it seems like a pretty quality piece. And the reviews that I watched on it and learned about it all said great things. But I don't have that ringing sound. I did not grease this one, but it doesn't have any spring sounds in here. I mean, it sounds solid, feels solid. When you hold this in your hand, I mean, it's like, you know, brass knuckles. This thing is solid. But this is a really cool knife. Let's see if I can keep that in the screen here. Maybe I'll flip it this way. Do I still have it in the screen? Yeah, I think so, just barely. I'll have to put it up here a little. I'll scoot those up. But because I have one more knife I want to show you. But this is made by Atomic, like I said. Great knife. And again, this is the AKC or AKG? AKC F16 is the name of this one. And then lastly, this one is kind of a no name, but it kind of is reminiscent of the microtech troodon. It's kind of like a copy or a clone. This one did not come from Blade HQ or Grindworks like all of these. This one came from DH Gate. My father-in-law actually bought this for me and gave it to me. He bought a couple of them, and they make, you know, they come from China. They're cheap. I think this one was 28 bucks. And he got a bunch of them because he bought some like this, and he also bought some Benchmade replicas or clones. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of, you know, a lot of times having those clones and those replicas just because, you know, I think, you know, someone might actually think it's a microtech or actually might think it is a Benchmade, and it's totally not, right? So, but with this particular double action, it is also very heavy, very hefty. It feels solid in your hand. I wish I had a scale. I'll have to get one, but this thing probably weighs, as much, if not more, even though smaller, barely smaller. But super hefty and heavy. Now this one, my father-in-law bought me, so I didn't really get to pick anything, which, you know, I don't have a serrated blade at all in my collection until I got this one, because personally I'm not a huge fan of it. But, you know, as a knife that I just would have around the house and not really use anywhere else, maybe opening boxes and things, I mean, that's perfectly fine. I'm not too worried about it. But when I buy my own, typically spend my own money, I usually like the smooth blades. So, you know, I don't particularly, you know, a huge fan of these because they're, you know, they're hard to sharpen. You know, once you dull those, which they don't dull very easily. But anyways, you can see spear point design. It's got a cool little design there in the middle with the holes. But it is, as I've played with this, I've had it for about 2 weeks now, and I've done this nonstop with it, and it works. I mean, a cheap Chinese knife that looks like a microtech troodon, and it freaking works. It did not come very sharp on this end, and this little tip is sharpened, but it is not very sharp. These, however, are sharp. Those feel very sharp, but not very much. I'll have to put an edge on them. Yeah. So, but I've had no failures to deploy or eject or retract. I mean, this thing is totally functional. I even watched a video of someone who had one of these DH Gate Infidels. It was the Benchmade Infidel clone, and he said it functioned better than his Benchmade because he actually also had the Infidel, and this little cheap Chinese crappy one deployed more reliably than his actual $400 Infidel. So, I mean, there is a place for these. I mean, but like I say, I mean, they work. They get you by cheap. You have to wait a month to get it in the mail, because if you go on DH Gate and buy it, you know, you wait two weeks at the earliest, out to like 2 months sometimes at the latest. I mean, maybe even longer than that in some cases. But yeah, so, you know, you got to wait for them because they're coming from China, which is kind of crazy. But and I don't like to support China, but I'll tell you what, I mean, all of these knives are probably Chinese knives or Taiwanese. This one, I think they said on the website they're all 440C, so just cheap steel, and or the Chinese equivalent of that, 18CR MOV. I don't know why, I can't remember, but I'm catching little pieces and remembering little pieces. But anyways, let's do a quick size comparison here, because they both have the notches on them. Yeah, you can see that this one on my right, the Atomic, is still a little bit longer, although this one, which really is a No Name, has no name on it, no brand at all. It's just a microtech clone lookalike. So I'm not going to call this a microtech. I'm going to call this a piece of crap. But but at the same time, it works and it's usable. But this is a POS that works. So I mean, very cool. It actually feels really nice. It's pretty comfortable. So that is the budget, if you will, collection of my OTFs that I have right now. You can see against one of these Lightnings, I mean, it's also a little bit longer than the Lightning. How does it compare to this guy? It's got to be pretty close. No, yeah, this one, the AKC is a lot shorter. You know, something else I'll point out real quick. When you get into these knives, based on their body, you'll see, like, one thing that always kind of bugged me was that your blade, and this is just the nature of these knives, your blade has to be off to one side a little. You're going to have a little bit more shoulder here than on the side where the blade ejects. And so, that, but with I will say with Lightnings, they're almost centered. They're not quite centered. They're a little off to the right, leaving a larger shoulder on this side. But in some of these cheap knives, that's really stands out. Like, check this one out. Like, let me see if I can put this over the green one. It might be easier to see. Maybe I'll flip this around. But look how big that shoulder is. Look at that thing compared to, something like that. That's a big difference. And then say you're looking at one of these. I mean, that's a big shoulder. When you look at it like this, it looks like it's coming out of the center, or this, no big deal. This is 440A, it says right on the blade. Look at that. But once you put it, in your hand this way, you see this huge shoulder, and you're like, man, that's kind of crappy looking. When I first got into these OTFs, I thought that was super weird, and I didn't really like it, even though on these it's much more minimal. I mean, you could see that on this guy, this Atomic, it's huge, but on this Lightning, it's much more minimal. And so that's another reason I like the Lightnings. I mean, they're very reliable, they're inexpensive, they come in all kinds of cool colors. You can get so many colors. Oh, look at that. Remember, this is the one that I told you has had the problem. This one, it's happened a handful of times where the blade will fall off track. So check this out. Look at that. It fell off. See that? See? So the blade is kind of free floating right now. When I retracted it, it didn't come all the way down. This is the only one of my Lightnings that's happened with. This orange one. But, I mean, it can happen with any of them. But that happened on my microtech Ultratech all the time. It drove me crazy, so I got more Lightnings as a result. So now I pulled it out, locked it back in place. Oh, look at that, did it again. That is kind of crappy about this knife. There we go. That's so weird. Look at that, all day long now. But one time, maybe it's just how I held it. Sometimes you gotta, it's kind of like a firearm. Sometimes you gotta have a solid grip on it so that it can fully seat. You can't, what do they call it? Limp wrist it. You gotta have a full solid grip when you eject and retract. But never had that happen on any of these ones. It's actually only happened on this one. This is the only Lightning I've had that's happened with. Could be something to do with the springs, or could be, limp wrist, and maybe this was just more susceptible to it. Yeah, other than that, that is some OTFs for you to look at and to maybe hopefully help you make a decision if you want to get 1 or 2 or 10. Pick some up and have some fun with them and use them. Get these inexpensive ones so that you don't feel bad really using them hard. That's one of the reasons I really like them, is you don't feel bad using these hard. So, all right, let me set these up. You can see like the buttons on some of them are on. Actually, it's only on this one. This one, the button's on the opposite side. So, But thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and reach out. I'm going to keep making some knife videos because I've got a lot of knives and I love knives. And so I think I'm going to make a few more videos and maybe make different series. I might do some other types of series of videos and kind of get into the KRN world because I really enjoy the knives. So, and you know, it's easy to make a quick video about them. This one's actually starting to get pretty long. So thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.